Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and this video is going to tell you the top 5 reasons why you should never dirty bulk again in your life, and really why you should never be okay with gaining excessive amounts of fat in your life. Okay, so I'm going to explain what I mean by that, because obviously a small amount of body fat is normal, and that's fine. But the main reason I'm making this video is because so many people giving out, fitness advice on YouTube talk about, muscle building and bulking and, any mass building plan as if it's okay to build excessive amounts of fat at the same time. And realistically, it's not. It's going to mess with your health, and it's also going to mess with your gains, okay? And your hormones, and I'm going to explain all of this in this video. So, let's start off this video by saying it is never okay to get obese.
I'm trying to get fat now.
What do you mean you're trying to get fat now?
I'm trying to put on like 80, 90 pounds, maybe 100.
Why would you do that?
I don't know, I just kind of have this vision of myself, like with an open Hawaiian shirt, gold chain, just drinking some alcohol by the pool, smoking cigars, yelling at the TV.
That sounds incredibly unhealthy on so many different levels.
Wait, are you fat shaming me right now?
Fat shame? No, bro, I'm saying that if you actively try to become obese, that'd be a poor life decision. Those are just facts.
Okay, now I'm not saying that you have to beat yourself up if you've gained some weight or something, or even if you've gotten obese. I'm just saying you should never make it a conscious goal where you're okay with getting obese as a result of a fitness program or a muscle building program. That is never okay. That is actually one of the worst pieces of advice I was given years ago. And I'm not just saying this as a personal vendetta. There are serious health problems that come with any time you allow yourself to get obese. And what those entail are, of course, it's going to mess with your health, but it's going to mess with your hormones, and it's going to make it harder to build muscle and easier to build fat. Okay? So that's the main direction this video is going in. But I'm going to explain to you the reasons why this happens when you allow yourself to get obese as the result of a bulking plan, dirty bulking, or this sort of, just get your protein in and eat whatever the hell else you want. That's a problem. You have to get more sophisticated than that. So, and then you can watch my videos to achieve that. So, reason number 1, aromatase. Nobody talks about this. Aromatase is an enzyme in the body that converts testosterone into estrogen. Well, it turns it into estradiol, and it turns androgens into estrogen in your body. So what that means is anabolic hormones to muscle tissue get converted into anabolic hormones for fat tissue. Testosterone is anabolic to muscle tissue and catabolic to fat tissue, and estrogen is anabolic to fat tissue. So the more you have of one or the other, that's what you're going to be, that's the cards you're dealt. If you have more testosterone, that's going to be beneficial for muscle building. This is why people can take steroids, and now their endocrine system is better able to absorb protein and have a higher rate of protein synthesis. When we have people with high estrogen, they have a much easier time gaining fat and a much harder time building muscle. Okay, I'll say that again. You do not want to artificially raise your estrogen. I have videos on endocrine disruptors, but the main, to make this palatable for a lot of people here, if you allow yourself to get fat,
I'm trying to get fat now.
Your body will have more aromatase, because aromatase is an enzyme that's in your body fat. And the more body fat you have, the more aromatase you have. And the more aromatase you have, the more conversion of testosterone you have to estrogen. So basically, the more fat you have, the easier it is to gain fat, and the harder it is to build muscle. And this is why people who, much respect to the people who go on these crazy fat loss journeys and they're starting to get in the gym, it is as hard as it can possibly be for those individuals, because not only do they have a load of fat and a load of this aromatase enzyme, they have a much harder time to actually build the muscle. So they have to take a double-pronged approach, and this is why people with my clients with the biggest weight loss goals, it always has to be a bit of weightlifting, and in addition to a well-formulated diet plan and a little bit of cardio. But you can't just have, just do the diet plan or just fit your macros. No, you need to create a hormonal change in your body, and to do this, right, to create a massive change in your physique, you need to hit the hormonal level here. You need to hit the gym. You need to have this sort of testosterone producing anabolic hormone production. Okay, so that's aromatase. That's reason number 1, and I'm trying to run through this video, so stay tuned, keep watching. Okay, it's gonna get even better and more palatable. Reason number 2, insulin sensitivity. A lot of people know about insulin sensitivity. Maybe you don't. Insulin is a hormone that essentially is the fat storage hormone. And it also is a hormone that shuttles nutrients into your muscles. Realistically, it's not the thing that's actually putting the nutrients in your muscles. That's the glucose transporters. But insulin is the carrier. It's like the cab that carries all the amino acids and it carries the sugar and puts it to your muscles, delivers it at the doorstep. So when we have a high amount of insulin and there's too much insulin going on all the time, that is how people get obese. That is literally the reason why, and that is why you have people with these, you'll never see an obese person who eats 0 insulin producing food, right? What is insulin producing food? Excess sugars, especially when combined with fat. That is like the cardinal rule of, fitness is don't combine high amounts of sugar and fat in the same meal. But when we're talking insulin sensitivity and how that affects, your ability to build muscle, burn fat, because your body is gaining more fat, because you are less insulin sensitive, you want to be more insulin sensitive. That means your body's able to use it effectively without storing any extra fat, without spilling over, that term that's thrown around. So you want to be more insulin sensitive. Getting fat makes you less insulin sensitive. And when you're less insulin sensitive, your body has a decreased ability to actually shuttle nutrients into your muscles. And also, it has a higher propensity to store fat because your body is inefficient at actually using insulin as a carrier. So it has to create more of this fat storage hormone to do the same job. So it has to create more cabs to carry around energy. And then when you have a billion cabs, they got to park somewhere. Okay, when you have a load of insulin, they got to go somewhere. So when your body overproduces this insulin because it's inefficient at carrying sugar, you gain more fat and you have a harder time building muscle. Okay, because you have this inefficient cab system. So many extra cabs being produced, but only so many of them are carrying what you want them to carry. And then they all got to go somewhere. So that's insulin sensitivity. That's the second one. And I've talked about that more in my other dirty bulking video. Now, here's some other tips. Your waist size. Okay, if you're a man, I believe the number is 36 inches. If your waist is 36 inches, and if you're a woman, I think it's 38 or something closer to 40. Don't quote me on that one. But if your waist is excessively wide, it's an indication that you are slightly insulin resistant, so less insulin sensitive. So whenever your waist is past that point, it's a wholeheartedly sign that you are at least slightly insulin resistant. So I've had my waist at that size before as well. But the point is, once you start hitting that point, there's a sign, that's a clear-cut sign that your body is less efficient with muscle building and more efficient, or less efficient at fat storage if you want to call it that, but essentially it leads to more fat storage. So your waist size is a good indication to kind of assess, where am I on this insulin sensitivity scale, right? So back to insulin, this is the last 2 points, okay? When we have excessively high insulin, right, which anybody who's overweight severely, anybody over 25 to 30% body fat is going to be less insulin sensitive. What's going to happen is your body, as a result of excessively high insulin, is now less sensitive to testosterone, okay? So again, testosterone is catabolic to fat tissue, so it breaks down, and anabolic to muscle tissue, so it builds up. So there are plenty of studies that there's a direct correlation. When your testosterone is low, chances are your insulin sensitivity is also low. When your testosterone is high, you will have a higher insulin sensitivity. So basically, there's this direct relationship, this reciprocal relationship with when your insulin is less, or when you're more insulin resistant, you have less testosterone. So the fatter you get, the less testosterone you have. And also, because of the previous points, you have more estrogen as well. So this is, of course, not going to be beneficial for muscle building, and it's also going to make fat burning even harder. So you have to nail down that whenever you're doing a muscle building plan, keep it lean. Okay, I'm going to explain this in a moment. I'll explain to you my preferred ways of doing this. One of which is keto bulking, one of which is carb cycling. There's lots of ways to implement this, but the number one takeaway from this video is do not dirty bulk. Do not do any plan that is acceptable, that is accepting of fat gain. It's simply something that is going to cause a myriad of hormonal problems for you. And what those hormonal problems result in is harder ability to build muscle, harder ability to lose fat. And the last point here is that when you have chronically elevated levels of insulin, and when I'm saying elevated, here's a condition here. Everybody has different levels of what their insulin sensitivity is. What my body's efficiency of insulin sensitivity is not going to be the same as somebody else's. What Cristiano Ronaldo's level of insulin sensitivity is probably more sensitive than most of the people watching this video, right? Probably more than most of the people on the planet. But the point is, it doesn't matter what your subjective insulin sensitivity is. All that we're talking about is maximizing that. So when you have very high levels of insulin, right? It's not like you can just look at somebody's blood work and say, yeah, he's over this, so therefore he's insulin insensitive, right? It doesn't quite work like that. It's about how effective your body uses that insulin. So hopefully that makes sense. All I'm trying to say is that you can't just look at a number and say, oh yeah, you're this level of insulin sensitivity. We can get an idea of if you're sensitive or not, but I can't tell you objectively what your number is. And when we're talking about somebody being over capacity of too much insulin and their body isn't able to use it, they're insulin resistant in some way, when you have elevated levels of insulin in your blood, your brain is less functional. One of the passages from one of my favorite books that I actually got here, Primal Body, Primal Mind by Nora Gagaudis, there's a line in that book where there's a study referenced where most brain functions and neurotransmitters cannot actually function properly in the presence of a massive insulin spike. So the direction I'm taking this is, a lot of people know you need insulin to build muscle, and I'm not just roasting insulin. There are times where I try to get a massive insulin spike, especially because I know those times are primarily when I believe my body is sensitive to it and going to use it adequately, right? But there are times for a high insulin spike, there's times for low insulin state. And besides the fact that chronically elevated insulin leads to inflammation and a bunch of other problems, what we're talking about here is your brain is not going to be able to function in the presence of a large insulin spike. Okay, neurotransmitters in your brain are not capable of functioning the way they should. And this also ties into sleep. Here's a free tip as well. If you have a massive insulin spike before bed, besides the fact that you're going to have a harder time falling asleep maybe, well, for some people, maybe not others. Either way, if we measured your sleep, especially with these modern sleep trackers we have nowadays, we would see that your sleep would be less restful. People get into lower, less heightened REM states when they're asleep in the presence of a massive insulin spike. And why is this? Because neurotransmitters in your brain cannot function properly in the presence of a massive insulin spike. And part of the reason I recommend so many ketogenic plans and so many fasting plans for people, right? Not everybody the same thing, but part of the reasons why those are some of the biggest vehicles for change on my page is because they actually allow you to fix your insulin sensitivity. They actually allow you to handle an insulin spike properly. And they eliminate chronic insulin spikes every few hours of the day. That is how most people diet, especially when you see this fitness context of people in the if it fits your macros, flexible dieting sphere, because they're refeeding every couple hours because their body is starved and they're reducing their insulin sensitivity. That is why they're hungry all the time, because they're used to this volatile blood sugar spike and crash, insulin in tandem with that. And then once they're at the bottom, they're driving by and McDonald's just makes them start salivating. It's a physiological response. And then they have to refuel and they get another insulin spike and another insulin drop. And then after a couple hours later, right, from that insulin crash, they can't function properly. Okay, I tried to make this brief. I mean, less than 15 minutes is a win for this one, in my opinion. But, hopefully I didn't lose anybody with how complex this got. Send this video to somebody if they're okay with dirty bulking. That's what I want the goal of this video to be, to stop people from doing this. I've done it in the past and it is a terrible decision. I've had advice from people who I'm not going to name that would say that it's okay. Oh guys, it's totally fine to dirty bulk, as long as you gain the muscle. First of all, you're going to have a much harder time gaining the muscle. It's going to be a lot harder to see the muscle when it's stored underneath a load of fat, and then you're going to have to spend longer dieting down and actually burning that fat off in a cutting phase to actually see it. And if you have to spend a long ass time cutting, chances are you're probably going to lose some muscle in the midst of that. So it's really not worth your time. And I didn't even really get into those practical reasons until now. I was trying to get into physiological reasons because the practical reasons are kind of at face value. Okay, so that's it for this video. Leave a like, subscribe to me right now, and follow my Instagram. Okay, follow my Instagram. And any other comments or questions you have, I'd love to help you out whenever I get a chance. Go to my website, romanoketo.com. If you want to work with me personally, I work out plans for people, I do consulting, I do coaching, and I have some programs dropping and books dropping very soon. So thank you for watching. Anthony Romano. Peace.